Well, welcome everybody here today. Let me start this off by getting a show of hands. Who here has ever played League of Legends? All right, okay, we got a couple here.
All right, excellent.
Nice. And who here is interested in Dominion? Learning a little bit about it. All right, good. You are in the right room. So yeah, we're here to talk about Dominion today and get a look in kind of behind the scenes at this 9-month project at Riot Games. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go through and ask some questions, find out a little bit more about how Dominion was made, and I'll leave time for Q&A at the end. So let's get started. First, can we go in order and just introduce ourselves, say what you do at Riot Games, and who you are.
Hey everybody, I'm Travis George. I'm the lead producer on League of Legends, and so as I like to joke with Morello, I'm responsible for all the things you like, and he's responsible for all the things you don't like. So that's not true.
Hey, I'm Ryan Scott Morello. I'm the lead champion designer on League of Legends.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey guys, I'm Christopher MacArthur, also known as Lima Beans, and I am a senior gameplay engineer on Dominion.
Why, hello. My name is Richard Huff, also known as Brackar. I'm the lead designer on Dominion.
Hey guys, I'm Mark Norris. I'm producer on Dominion, and I do pretty much whatever Travis tells me to do.
That's also not true.
And I'm Chris Enoch. I'm the marketing director, and I'm the moderator today. All right, let's get started. I've often heard that that projects at Riot start with a goal or an objective. What was the goal of Dominion?
Yeah, so that is true. We actually often set goals. Goals are good, right? So when we sat down and kind of worked on what became Dominion, right, we really wanted to, we took a look around and you know, you guys, our players, have been kind of asking for a new map and kind of a new experience for a long time now. And we sat down and we said, all right, we're gonna do this. We're gonna, you know, we always try to listen and give players what they want. And throughout development, we really kind of started to realize that we didn't want to just make a new map. We didn't want to just make, you know, translate kind of the classic League of Legends MOBA gameplay onto a different layout, right? We actually wanted to go a little bit further and kind of evolve the genre and push things forward a little bit and create not only a new map, but an entirely new experience, right? And that experience ended up what we now know as League of Legends Dominion, and we're really excited about it. Has anybody played Dominion so far? Yeah.
Wow.
You guys awesome. That's awesome. So we'll talk more about it. You guys can answer more questions, but I think Morello's got a really good analogy about this too.
So one of the big things I think we noticed when we were, what Travis was saying, like, hey, we want to move it into a new direction and kind of evolve the genre instead of offering kind of more of what you already had, is I like to kind of compare it to sports, right? Like, you don't go play football on a round football field and then play football on a square football field, and et cetera. You play football or watch football, and then if you want a different experience, you watch baseball or basketball or something different. And we try to kind of see that as, if we offer a new kind of place to play, we should also offer a new way to play.
Right.
And Richard, were there any objectives for the type of gameplay that you wanted to see on this map?
Well, so League of Legends Dominion is capture and hold gameplay, a new 5v5 map. And capture and hold, you know, fundamentally isn't necessarily like that new genre, right? I remember playing it all the way back in like Battlefield 1942. But it took a lot of effort to figure out how to integrate that capture and hold gameplay into the MOBA genre, right? There haven't really been examples of making it a core tenet of the map. There have been a few instances of layering it on top of like a 3-lane style, but nothing like what we ended up with in Dominion. So starting out with, we really wanted to create a map that was all about aggression, about constant action. We didn't want a map where it would be straightforward to, you know, capture a few points and just sit on them and play really defensively.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, you know, great.
Sitting around?
Yeah, I love sitting around.
No, never mind.
Just hold, no capture?
Yeah, pretty much. So a lot of work went to figure out how to make the map very fluid, very dynamic, and encourage people to, you know, do those heroic attacks across the map. And that was something we spent a lot of focus on from the very beginning.
Cool. Well, I'd like to also talk a little bit about the art and what the map looks like. And to kick that off, I'd actually like to show you guys, if you'll bear with me, another video. So, Carolee, can we roll that one? This video is going to give you a little bit more of a, we've released it already, but it's a behind-the-scenes look at the art on Dominion.
The Dominion map looks fantastic. It's by far and away the best map we've ever made. The entire map feels alive, things are moving, all the capture points are totally differentiated from each other. It's not mirrored like Summoner's Rift and Twisted Treeline.
The look and feel is really trying to create this world that's alive. A lot of the capture points will have landmarks, and each of those landmarks will be in some way slowly moving or animating. For instance, some of the lifts in one of the capture points are going to slowly bring up these minerals and crystals, and you got the windmill slowly churning with all its gears and the magic driving it. We're trying to create kind of a story within a story, pretty much create some kind of production line of these crystals being processed and then turned into a usable source of magic.
Here we have the new map, and what I'm doing is going through and populating some of these islands you see in here and lighting them. And you can adjust the intensity, the radius, and slide them around and you get real-time lighting anywhere you want to go. We have a lot of particles that we're going to be placing that add more life to. For instance, we also have torches and ground fog and things like that. So a lot of things moving around.
The audio team really saw it as a big opportunity to take the music in League of Legends to the next level. We want to kind of keep it in that fantasy vein that really fits, but we want to have an edge to it. We looked at the map and we kind of thought of elements that we could bring in from the world around that you would actually hear and bring it into the music. So when the music's playing, you'll actually hear anvil hits and all these different kind of things that really brings the map to life. We set up an interactive music system so that the music actually responds to the current status of the game and it reacts to what's going on between the two teams. And as the teams get closer and closer to victory, the music gets more epic and intense as we kind of build to this final climactic battle. I think that the first time players hear the music in Dominion, they're going to be incredibly excited because it's a whole new big epic experience in League of Legends that we haven't been able to deliver before.
Things look fantastic, but we also really maintained the style that we love and that our players love. It's a massive update, it's really innovative, it's extremely fun, it's very fast-paced. Every strategic capture point is totally different. The background art in the environment is done at a much higher level than we've done before. It has a lot of great detail that enhances the experience, but doesn't detract from the gameplay, and I think our players are going to love it.
I actually had the Dominion music stuck in my head the other morning when I woke up. I didn't realize what it was. I was like, oh yeah, that's the Dominion music.
Now mystery solved?
Yeah.
All right. How did you decide, Travis, what style the Dominion map would be and what art style it would have?
Well, you know, we really arrived at kind of the theme and style and feel of the map the way that we do pretty much everything else, which is very iteratively. You know, so we sat down initially and said, you know, what's a really great theme that we can kind of go after with this map? And, you know, when it kind of turned into Minion, we, you know, had a bunch of different themes that we actually wanted to do from this kind of subset of, we want to do, you know, in a different environment that we've done before that's not a more natural trees, kind of, you know, rocks, you know, Twisted Treeline, Summoner's Rift style. We actually wanted to go pretty far different from that just to kind of flex the, you know, the visual style of the game. And, you know, I remember having a lot of conversations with Richard and, you know, and the guys in that video there. And, you know, we drew just a ton of different cityscapes, towns, mining centers, machines, creatures, all kinds of different stuff. And ultimately, we kind of just bubbled up kind of the best ones and kind of the most awesome ones that we actually then focused in on and kind of that theme of the kind of the ruined mining village of Kalamanda that you guys see, you know, is the actual map now. You know, that was just kind of the best and most, the theme that resonated with us most. You know, the color palette looks great, but still playable. And, you know, so we really just kind of iterated through that, you know, with this kind of high-level direction. We wanted to do something different in mind.
Yeah, from the outset, Kalamanda was always described as a mining village, but in the original sketches, it was actually a much smaller part of of what was Calamanda. But as we started developing the map and working with the different assets that we had, we really became more and more attracted to this mining concept, because by going down the mining path, we could do some really cool things that you don't see on Summer's Rift or Twisted Tree Line. We have a lot of visibility into mine shafts below the ground that create a lot of depth on the map, something that doesn't exist on our other maps, and also allowed us to really accentuate these new animated props that we have in the map. The idea of these machinery that are working with the stone, moving crystals around, mining from the ground, and really create like a living and breathing environment by wrapping the entire map around the concept of a mining village and not just being a small part of it. We could really do a bunch of really like larger, bigger pieces along those lines.
Yeah, and there's a balance that you have to strike in there, right? You don't want to put so much moving, busy stuff all over the map that it's distracting, but you can get a lot of benefit out of doing what Richard's describing, which is creating these bigger kind of set pieces almost that give the map an entirely different feel than even when it's static.
And Christopher, was there any tech that you had to add to create some of those moving pieces and some of the stuff that we haven't seen before?
Yeah, I mean, in Summoner's Rift, we really hadn't done anything like this with kind of dynamic objects that are animating and moving, and so we had to build some new tech so artists could do this. And we did it in such a way that artists could kind of play with it themselves and place it themselves and move it around themselves, and so it was a very kind of gave a lot of power to the artists, and so they did some interesting and surprising things with on Dominion that kind of made the map look a lot more 3D as the drills come through the ground and kind of show off those aspects of it. So it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, one challenge technology-wise that we ran into is like we have some buildings in Summer's Rift, the towers and the Nexus, right? But they don't really have animations associated with them, and so creating this construct that was not an attackable object, right? Like all the towers and the Nexus and stuff are in Summer's Rift, but have animations that are kind of this in between a character and a building. Took a lot of finagling in our system, right? Because that concept didn't exist before we began.
And I guess one other thing to follow up there too was one of the major things that we wanted to do with Dominion was really craft these heroic moments, these epic moments where a battle can sort of turn on the tide, right? So we have these 5 points on the map, and each one of them has a very distinguishable element, so that when you're recounting the story of how it was a 3-2 game, and you had a giant fight, and you were Udyr and you were taking down another champion like Renekton, and you were explaining that, and you were saying, when I was at the quarry, we had this giant fight, and basically by allowing you to have that ability to take a look and really identify with each single one of those 5 sections of the map, you could really make those heroic moments come alive.
Yeah, from a design standpoint, it was very important for us to attach landmarks around each of the capture point, that they simply weren't the top point, the southwest point, etc. And so we settled on focusing on large animated structures around each of those points to provide that character and provide that context to the points.
Yeah, if you look at the announcements in the game, right, it doesn't say the north point has been captured, it says the windmill's been captured, right? And so, because it's very easy to look at that and just say, even in the game world, just say like, oh, that's, this is very clear the windmill as indicated by this giant moving window.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of the points, was the kind of final layout the first layout that you guys tried, or was there?
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, right.
You are geniuses.
We nailed that one.
From the beginning.
I've told this story a few times, but I think Richard, Ryan, and myself all sat down and we said, all right, well, we know we want to do this capture and hold, what eventually became known as Dominion gameplay, and I can still remember it very vividly. We all had whiteboards and we drew out the map and we're like, this is the layout, and we all had different ones. And we're all like, this is the one that it's going to be. I think there's like some horseshoes and weird shapes and, boxes, and none of them were even remotely close.
Yeah.
At all.
That's pretty much true. When from the outset, we kind of knew that we wanted a 5-point capture map because, tying back to what I said earlier, we really wanted a map where it wasn't possible to sit on points. And we thought by moving from a 5-point implementation as opposed to a 3-point, that would help alleviate a lot of those problems, right? Because that's a large number of points for a team of, a group of 10 players to fight over at any given time, right? But Travis is absolutely right. Like the first layout we did was like a horseshoe. Then we tried a 5 on a die, that you can imagine. Then we also tried a reverse Z. And as we iterated through a lot of these implementations, the reason that we ended up settling on the more circular layout that you see right now is actually minions. So minions are a really important part of the MOBA gameplay. I mean, if you look at League of Legends, you've got characters like Annie, Nunu, Nasus, who are all have abilities that play directly off of minions being around and readily available in the map. So figuring out how to integrate minions into capture and hold gameplay was actually one of the largest challenges for us to make this mode feel like League of Legends, to feel like a MOBA, to feel like capture and hold, and that all to work together. And so when we came up with the idea of minions moving between the capture points, we found that layouts like a 5-die or reverse Z proved to be a bit problematic because any capture point then wouldn't necessarily have the same number of minion lanes connecting it as other points on the map. So some lanes would actually be under a lot more pressure than minions from other ones. This created a lot of imbalance and actually pushed towards the ability to hold certain points over others. So we shifted to the circular layout that we have now specifically because it allows every capture point to only have 2 minion lanes associated with it. So now there's not any integrated force into the map that makes it necessarily easier or harder to assault a point.
Yeah, and Richard mentions a few champions or whatever, and it was really important to us. It was a clear goal that we set out with, that we were never going to have this mode restrict which champions you could play on, right? Like, imagine your favorite champion and then saying, oh, I'm really excited about Dominion, and, oh, but you can't use your favorite champion on it, right? And so, we knew that was a challenge that we had to solve, and one of the things was the layout figured directly into that. Actually, it doesn't seem like it would, but that was a large chunk of it.
It was actually a big surprise from us design side as we were iterating through it, how much simple things like that really changed the viability of different archetypes on the map.
Great. We're starting to talk a little bit about gameplay, and that's a good transition. Let's just I have another video that I'd like to share with you guys as we just to set up the discussion about gameplay, and then we'll get right back to it.
League of Legends Dominion is the largest update ever. So we wanted to create a new game mode for League of Legends, and specifically capture and hold, because capture and hold mechanics add a lot of really cool elements that don't exist in Summoner's Rift. Veteran League of Legends players will really love Dominion because it really boils down the best elements of the game they already know and love into a short and intense 20-minute gameplay session.
There's 5 capture points on the map, and they all start in a neutral state. So it's kind of a race at the beginning for players to establish a strong foothold early in the match. Throughout the game, players are constantly switching between capturing points, trying to overtake them, as well as defending points that are being assaulted.
There's more combat, it's more intense. Games are a lot shorter. They can go from 10 to 20 minutes, and you also progress your character a lot quicker. So people are getting Infinity Edges, Last Whispers, things like that in 15 minutes in. We really tried to create as much drama and excitement and back and forth as we possibly could. Death timers are far lower than Summoner's Rift. The rate at which you're killing opponents and being killed is much quicker. It's just a much more frantic pace. For experienced players, there's a whole new layer of teamwork to master in terms of how you can fake an attack on a point, or how you can group up to take a point, how you can group up to defend. While Summoner's Rift requires exceptional teamwork to win, I think it only requires it at certain key points of the game. Whereas in Dominion, I think that great teamwork is rewarding all the time.
Dominion is fast and Dominion is fun. The game is focused around small skirmish team fights. So 1v1, 2v2, 2v3 if you're unlucky. Each game is about 20 minutes in length on average, and we really feel that it just captures a lot of the awesome parts of classic League of Legends without some of the slower parts. The game's never really over until the very last second. It's always possible to come back at Dominion, and so there's no feeling of inevitable loss.
We've also included a new feature in Dominion that we first revealed in Battle Training, which is the idea of quests. These quests will appear over the course of the game and basically incentivize you to perform particular actions on the map. For instance, maybe you receive a quest that says, hey, control the bottom 2 points and you'll get a large reward. These sort of quests then break up the flow and change things from what the standard approach may be at the given time.
Dominion is a great example of how League of Legends will continue to push our genre forward. We put a huge amount of resources behind Dominion. This is a project that has been massive in scope. It's involved artists, engineers, designers. It's a massive effort with dozens and dozens of people that have been spending months working on this fantastic update. It creates this really interesting mechanism that has the whole Riot staff totally addicted to it and wanting to play it constantly. We think our players will really enjoy it as well.
Wait for the fist. Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Got to follow
It's as
through.
if both that video and this panel have experts on Dominion. It's weird. You recognize
Funny how that works.
Amazing.
So, Christopher, did you have to add any new tech to support the new gameplay of Dominion?
Yeah, like very early on, we kind of realized that Dominion was different. As Richard said, we're kind of bringing a new type of gameplay to the MOBA genre. We knew that kind of the old school way that we built Summoner's Rift was probably not going to work for Dominion. We really needed something that was going to let designers iterate as fast as possible so that they could find the fun in this new capture and hold gameplay. And so we kind of got together, the engineers and designers got together, and we worked that out, and we built like a whole new level scripting system and a whole new tool that we call the Summoner tool. And this is a cool tool that like puts the power into the hands of the designer. And it lets them experiment, it lets them iterate really fast, and it lets them make awesome stuff easily. So they were able to try out a bunch of different stuff to get this capture and hold gameplay awesome. And this is kind of like the secret sauce, I think, for how we were able to do this. So
Yeah, we
Go ahead.
So we had used Summer Script starting out. It was actually, we started developing about a year ago now, right? And the first time you guys actually saw any results from it was battle training. And it was also then used again for co-op versus AI. The system is basically built on the idea of behavior trees, if any of you are familiar with it. And Dominion was really the first instance of us using it for the core game rules on the map. Now, you should keep in mind that this means that at the same time we're building a new game mode, we're also trying to build the scripting system to write the said game mode. It's kind of like putting the plane together while you're flying it. It was pretty rough, but I mean, if we had done it any other way, like very hard-coded approach, we would have been stopped dead so many times during the course of the project. I mean, in terms of the core gameplay, it's changed a lot. We talked about different map layouts. There were like a bunch of fundamental things that we changed over the course of the game. There was one implementation that we tried, I guess a couple of months ago now, where when you capture points, minions would walk to the center of the map, pick up gold, and then return back to the capture points. And that's actually how you scored points in the game, right? And without this type of dynamic scripting system, which Christopher was very instrumental on, we wouldn't have been able to pivot as quickly as we would need to based on the type of feedback that we're getting. Because in the Dominion project, we were playtesting 2-3 times every day and always iterating for the next playtest.
yeah, we played a lot of Dominion.
But play a lot, still play a lot.
Yeah.
And tell me about how you guys developed the actual mechanic for capturing a point. How did that come about?
So that's actually, I think, one of the most important things about Dominion is, like Richard was saying earlier, is we've seen capture and hold in other games before. And so obviously the first thing we do is like, oh, hey, we see this stuff work in other games. Let's try that out. So we tried standing on the point, interacting with the point and waiting, and I think we had attacking the point and killing it at one point, and then building the towers. We had a lot of crazy stuff. And what we found out is we finally got down to where we're at now, where it's kind of like channel on the point, persistent progress, and hit people to interrupt. And the reason we chose that was because it's the kind of things that that really capitalize on the types of skills League of Legends already rewards, like attacking players, kind of distracting people, doing zone defenses. All sorts of really interesting tactics started appearing around the points, to where you had almost a little fun mini game around attacking and defending points, and that was really important.
Yeah, and starting out, like, as a big previous Battlefield player, like, I was convinced at the very beginning of the project that, like, passively standing on a point and capturing it would be the best gameplay, because it worked out beautifully in all those FPSs that I had played. But as we kept going through it, it just created, like, the the tactical gameplay on top of the map was pretty stale. And what we realized was it's because unlike in an FPS where you're only seeing in front of you, the top-down like God camera that's in League of Legends actually removes a lot of the interesting part of those passive capture mechanics. The core mechanic that we came up with actually was kind of a eureka moment. I think I went out to to lunch with Ezreal, one of the other designers on the project, and Jeeves, who's sitting on the front row, went out to to lunch with Sieng on the same day, and we both separately came up with this idea of attrition-based capture. I think as a quick note, the attrition part of the capture, the idea that when you're capturing a point, if you're interrupted, you don't actually reset the progress. It's actually one of the big distinction points of the gameplay of Dominion, because that's what really allows to the reward for constant assault, constant progress on a point, because even if you fail an assault at capturing a point, you've still made it easier to capture that point next time, and that's one of the big things I think helps break up the cap 3 and hold strategy on the map.
So what you're saying is standing around isn't very fun.
No, standing.
Okay.
I thought it would be,
I just want to clarify that for everybody. That standing around is not fun.
Yeah, I learned otherwise.
It sounds really simple, and when I tease Richard about it, but it was a really tricky part of Dominion, and it's one of those things that we could have released Dominion way earlier, and it would have been fun for a little bit, and it would have been a neat, different experience. But one of the things that we knew we had to do was really take the time to really kind of just nail all the aspects that we could with it, and not release it just to get something out, but release it when it was really fun and really awesome and really kind of League of Legends, capture and hold League of Legends-ified, right?
And how many games did it take you about to figure out that was the right capture mechanic?
I mean, probably everybody at this table's played more games than anybody else on the planet right now.
But so, in terms of testing out the core
Dominion,
yeah.
I mean, not Summer's Rift.
The core capture mechanic, actually, we figured it out really quickly once we tried it. That was a good way to go to. Basically, for a long time, we had a problem with defenders feeling like they had no real recourse when there was attacker. Like an attacker would walk up, it's like, oh, I guess I have to fight you. This is kind of fun, okay. But the idea of like the capture actually stopping the tower from attacking and interrupting captures by dealing damage to them created this like neat little mini game. I remember the name of it this time, Whack-A-Mole. There we go. Every time we've rehearsed this, I've had trouble. So it created like this Whack-A-Mole style gameplay, which, kind of a neat mini game wrapped within the higher concept of attacking and defending points. So pretty quickly, we settled on it after we tried it out.
Yeah, and I think one surefire sign that has been successful is I've been up at the booth and I've been shoutcasting some games and stuff of Dominion, and like every time it's like and like the whole like tension builds and the big moments happen is kind of around those big plays, and you see like one person holding out against 4 people on this capture point and just being awesome and being really heroic, and it's just like after seeing that this weekend, it's just like it gives you all those feelings that we kind of wanted that interaction to feel like.
Yeah, we really wanted to make there only be heroic moments in Dominion. We didn't want any helpless moments. So we actually did a lot to make those types of defensive scenarios where it's 1v3 and you're going to die, the progress actually feel really good and really beneficial for your team.
That's a really cool saying, Richard, that no hopeless moments, only heroic moments.
Yeah, it is a good saying.
We even give it a specific award for that, I think, right? Called the Martyr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the game.
Yeah, we actually do. Travis has teased me because he actually has been using that line a lot at the booth.
Yeah, he co-opted it from me, which I co-opted it from Freak, actually. Freak said it at our press event, and I was like, I'm gonna say that to a bunch of people.
And
sounds
so
good. It's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Now we all look kind of smart, except for you guys mentioned it. So.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah.
What about the interface? Were there any new considerations that you had to bring into kind of the HUD and how people view the game?
Yeah, I think one of the major things when dealing with Dominion was as we evolved the genre, as we wanted to think about this new capture and hold map, one of the things we wanted to ensure is that we took all the best elements of classic Summoner's Rift gameplay and made sure that they made it into Dominion. So one of the major things that we wanted to be able to take a look at is, what are those big strategic and tactical decisions that are being made throughout, right? And one of the things that when you're taking a look at that 5-cap map, if you can know immediately what is happening on that screen, that's going to give you a distinct advantage to helping make those tactical and strategic decisions. So we instituted this thing called a kill call-out system, which is now on live, and I think you guys have probably played it and seen it, which is basically at the top right corner of the screen, it will immediately tell you when somebody has been killed, who the person has been killed by, and how many people have assisted on that. And why that's so vitally important is because that gives you real-time information as to what's happening on the map. So if somebody is being killed in the lower left-hand corner of the map, and you see, for example, it's one of your teammates that gets killed, maybe Rammus got killed, and you see that, you know, Tristana and Renekton and Cho'Gath were down there from the enemy team, and they just made that kill. You know that there are undefended points on that map because 3 people in the bottom left-hand corner. So that's why that kill call-out system was so important.
Yeah, there's a lot of different UI systems, and in Dominion, obviously, there's the capture indicator at the top, which is pretty key to understanding if you're winning or losing the game. You know, and one of the great benefits of that also is that it's a really great summary of knowing exactly where you're at with, you know, the progress of the game. It's not this kind of interpretive reading the tea leaves thing that you see on kind of classic, you know, Summoner's Rift, where it's like, oh, how many towers do they have? How many team kills do we have? How much gold does everybody have, right? And you kind of blend that all together and get kind of, well, I think this team's winning, right? You know, it's very, very clear and very, very distinct where you're at and what your trajectory is also, right, in Dominion. And, you know, as Mark mentioned, we've done a lot of work on the Dominion team to just overall improve, you know, not only the look of the map and the gameplay and just everything, but including the UI. So there's a new scoreboard, there's a new kill call-out system, there's new PvP net, you know, refinements, and all those are, you know, actually we patched out a lot of those to live if you guys have played since the most recent patch, and that all came from this drive in Dominion to make all that better and more clear.
Okay. Well, I also want to leave time for fan questions, but I have one more thing that I wanted to ask the panel, and then we'll transition into questions about Dominion. But my last question for you guys is, how do we account for different types of champions on the map? Were there certain types of champions that were more effective on Dominion? Ryan, you're nodding.
Yeah, that's probably the fans' primary concern that I hear too, is like, oh, how are you guys going to make sure X, where X equals my favorite champion, is viable and fun on Dominion? And that's actually it's a major consideration because balancing multiple maps and multiple game modes has always been a challenge in video game design anyway. So we actually took an approach where we got out in front of it, which is to say we're trying to make it so we do all of our balance on the map level. And what that means is we've changed the item shop significantly, removed a lot of items, and then added a bunch of new ones. In most cases, the ones we've removed, we've added replacements of. Yep. And in many cases, I think they're actually a lot cooler. Like Odin's Veil is a good example.
Ionic Spark.
Yeah, Ionic Spark
was awesome.
As if you have a bias towards that item.
Yeah, so a little bit. But yeah, so that was one of the measures we took, is by changing the item pool, you change what champions can do a lot, or you add new things champions can do. The second thing is a map-wide kind of rule set buff. So it's like, we found, for example, healers were super, super powerful, just kind of running in circles around points and staying there forever versus like 3 people. And so instead of going by and nerfing all healers, we did that for a different reason. Instead of nerfing them by more than what we actually did.
I told you he does all the things you don't like.
It's true. We actually made it so all heals on Dominion do 20% less. So then now we can say, okay, the things on Dominion are taken care of, and this will feel fun and balanced, but we don't have to go ruin the feel of all these other champions on Summoner's Rift or just generally.
Yeah, it was extremely important for us to not change any of the characters, you know, in their core mechanics or their availability to play on any of this. Again, you know, we just thought about it from the perspective of, well, I love to play X, Y, and Z champion, you know, and I'm super excited about Dominion, and oh, that really sucks that I can't play it on Dominion because Riot couldn't balance it, or Riot couldn't fundamentally figure out, you know, one of the things that made this champion type, like healers, super broken and unfun to play against. So we took a lot of time to go through that exercise and tried a lot of different strategies and compositions and problem champions, and you know, and we really, you know, I think that Ryan and I were talking about this. We just came back from Germany and we were demoing at Gamescom. And we were sitting there and we were watching all these people play their favorite champions in these press demos. And we'd sit there and we'd be like, wow, that champion's really good on Dominion. Wow, that champion's really good on Dominion too. Wow, that's... And we realized it's like we should just stop saying that because it seems like pretty much all the champions that we saw everybody play had a really, really awesome role. Even if it was kind of different from their role on classic League of Legends, they still had a really viable and fun and interesting place in the grand scheme of things.
And one thing that I've actually had a few questions about since I've been here that I think I'll just address now is moving forward, looking at the balance between Dominion and Summoner's Rift. I mean, the types of gameplay that we have on Summoner's Rift, like 1v1, 2v2, 3-3 encounters, those still occur on both Dominion and Summoner's Rift, right? So if there's a champion who's problematic because they're too good at those 1v1, 2v2, I mean, they're probably just as frustrating on Summoner's Rift, before the 20, 25-minute mark. And conversely, if there's a champion on Dominion who's like, well, this guy's only really good in those 5v5 encounters that occur in Summoner's Rift, that probably means on Summoner's Rift, they're pretty boring to play for the first 25 minutes of the game, right? So in any way that we improve the balance for champions on Dominion, we're actually probably improving the balance of champions on the whole across the product, right? So overall, this will be a really good thing, I think, for League of Legends moving forward.
Great. Well, I want to also leave time, make sure that we leave time for fan questions. We've got a lot more questions for this panel, but I think there's probably some questions in the audience.